in many places, fish are seen as like that even use the word resource, like to describe them,
Mm,
right? Like fisheries resources, like fisheries wealth. Like the
mm,
country has how much you wouldn't talk about, I don't know, like biodiversity in terms of like a resource. So I feel like with aquatic
mm,
animals, we still struggle to see them as wildlife in the same way. They literally can't grow any vegetables where they are. Like they can't grow anything, right?
mm,
And they were under criticism. Like they basically only eat animals where they are. And there was some like vegan
mm,
push, like some external forces trying to like tell them, hey, you guys should not hunt all of these wild animals. And they were saying, well, actually, we have to, any vegetables we get, we have to the carbon footprint of it, and also flying it out, and the cost, and I guess the only thing we can do here. So
mm,
it's about also tailoring your advice to not everything works for everyone. Telling people to make
mm,
lifestyle changes when they don't have the option, I think, is insensitive, inconsiderate, and probably unethical too. I was fortunate to find a fully paid for master's degree in Europe. It was between multiple countries
oh,
under a scheme called Erasmus Mundus. So that was based in France, Germany, UK, and Portugal. Have you seen these pictures of chickens like in the factory farm? Like they're so crowded and
yes,
like yeah. So that's
yes,
sustainable because you're making economically it's good. The profit's good. They produce fine. Maybe you could argue that improving conditions for them might lead to lower disease outbreaks, but still probably it's economically more profitable to give the animals very little space and like really, and then even the
mm,
ones that die, it's okay because you have so many in there, right? Now that's probably
mm.
sustainable, but is it ethical?
Welcome to Working with Wildlife, where I, your host, Jaedon Lunt, speak to experts and enthusiasts in different fields of nature to find out how and why they do what they do. Ethics can be a touchy subject, but it is an important topic to cover and consider because it impacts so many different parts of wildlife and life in general. Today's guest is the director, founder, and lead researcher at Ethical Seafood Research. He holds advanced degrees in applied aquatic ecology and has over 15 years of experience internationally with fisheries and aquaculture. Gaining recognition for his seaweed farming in Zanzibar, his passion and advocacy extends to community engagement, public education, and policy reform. Now, in this episode, there is a slight issue with the audio on my side, disappointingly so, but the guest audio still sounds fantastic. I know you're going to love the episode. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Wasim Imam. Welcome to the podcast, man. This is going to be an awesome conversation. I'm really looking forward to this. First off, you're in Spain at the moment, and you said the day's looking pretty nice today, eh?
Yeah, not a bad day at all today. Yesterday was grayer, so today is a bit lighter. Yeah, but thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to talk more about the different wildlife experiences and so on.
Yeah, this is going to be real cool. I'm looking forward to getting into. You are the founder of Ethical Seafood Research,
Yeah.
which is an entity that obviously the name is pretty self-explanatory, which is good. Self-explanatory names are good, but we're going to be getting into the ethics, your personal story, and like what's going on in your world on the other side of the world, in comparison to Australia. But presently, what are you doing for work? See.
So as you said, I founded a nonprofit a couple of years ago called Ethical Seafood Research. So I identified that there was a gap really in the what we call aquatic food, since seafood is a bit limiting. It's not just marine derived products, but there's so little consideration of what fish feel, and we consider them as products really. And I thought the ethical aspect of seafood production was missing, and that's where I
I mean,
decided to focus my efforts. So currently we are a team of seven. Actually, we're spread around the world, and we have projects on the ground working with farmers to help improve how fish are farmed in key countries' operation. Yeah.
Mm. When did this start? When did you found this?
So officially, just over 2 years ago, but the idea was in my head for the last 3 or 4 years. I've been working on fish welfare issues, and I'd already had some idea about the some of the concerns that are around farming fish at high densities and in certain environments and so on.
Where did you like come up with this idea? And why do you think it's a problem? Like fishing, you hear overfishing is like it's spoken about a lot. Maybe I'm wondering like what evidence is there. Maybe we can get into that a little bit later. But how did this idea come about for you?
So, you know, I studied aquatic ecology, so I was more on the conservation side of things, like how do we improve, habitats for wild aquatic animals, fish in particular. And then, after
Mm.
graduating, I found myself sort of sucked into the industry, both fisheries and aquaculture work. And at the time, it was very much the conversation that aquaculture is a solution to all these fishing problems we have. Like overfishing, like you said, most fisheries around the world are overexploited or fully exploited. And, the state of the ocean is, in many ways problematic. So aquaculture was often touted as a solution to that. So sometimes when the solution is something that people talk about a lot, they don't look at enough of the criticism of well, are we doing this as good as we can? And I think animal welfare is something that we've been thinking about a lot more on for land animals, but for aquatic animals, it's really only just the beginning of thinking about also we don't really see.
Oh, the beginning.
Yeah, compared to like cows, chickens, pigs, I mean, we know so much more about
Yeah.
the behavioral needs and how to provide good welfare to land animals. Yeah, I'm talking about farm animals, really. Yeah,
Okay, so it's just in regards to the farming industry. The aquatic side of the farming industry is got a fair while to catch up to the kind of the standards of the terrestrial
yeah,
farming.
yeah. I mean, like, so you asked about
Yeah.
evidence, for example. I mean, there's so many more studies that have been done on land animals. We know a lot more about how to farm cows and pigs and sheep and all that because it's been done for just hundreds of years, whereas aquaculture is really quite a new field compared to agriculture or
Mm.
animal agriculture in particular. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you said you saw a bit of a gap in the
Yeah.
market. How did you see that gap? I guess is what I'm wondering. Like working with wildlife, there's so many different ways to work with wildlife. You can either work as maybe as a conservationist, or you can work under an organization that's already started. But you started your own thing, so
Yeah.
you saw a gap in the market and you decided to create well, a business out of it, but an ethical business, something that is both benefiting your goals and what you want to do, but also wildlife and nature. So how did you find that gap?
Yeah, that's interesting actually because, you know, this is sort of what I was trying to get at when I said that I studied aquatic ecology. So my background definitely was more on the conservation side. But the thing with and I wanted to work with fish. I knew that I really liked fish and working with fish and being around
Mm.
them and all that. So I, uh, in many places, fish are seen as like that even use the word resource, like to describe them,
Mm.
right? Like fisheries resources, like, fisheries wealth. Like the
Mm.
country has how much you wouldn't talk about, I don't know, like biodiversity in terms of like a resource, So I feel like with aquatic
Mm.
animals, we still struggle to see them as wildlife in the same way. So I guess for me, it was that I thought that the opportunity was to kind of try to change that perspective that aquatic animals are just as sentient as land animals and are important parts of wildlife and biodiversity and so on.
You wanted it to be seen as just as important, but why did you think that what like how, why did you think what your idea would be, I guess, impactful or that it would work out?
I mean, I saw that more and more people were asking questions about where, the fish that they're eating comes. Okay, right. Let's keep in mind that the authorities are always pushing the ones that deal with like food guidelines, like what we should be eating, there was a big push for many years, and there
Mm.
still is in many places. Like fish was part of the answer to good health, right? So, even people who are vegans or vegetarians, fish was one of the few things. Like, so yeah, that's where pescatarianism came from, and so on, right? Like
Mm.
fish didn't have such a bad reputation. So many people were turning to fish, and then more questions were being asked, like, okay, where is this coming from? Is this sustainable? And as the transition to more and more farming happens, again, it questions. Well, I feel that any animals that are under our care, whether you're a zookeeper, whether you're a farmer, whether you're, I don't know, someone who keeps like snakes, I guess in your case, and other animals, we have a responsibility to look after them, right? We have a higher responsibility.
Mm.
They're directly under our care to give
Mm.
them the best conditions, let's say, that we can. I
Mm.
mean, at least not put them in bad conditions. That's my personal take, right? So
Mm. Right.
having transitioned to farming fish and having, most of the seafood now comes from farmed as opposed to wild catch, um, that gives us more um, responsibility to do that properly. So that's the gap that I saw, really,
Mm.
that it's not just like
Mm. That
yeah, go ahead.
that higher calling to responsibility for what is under us kind of thing.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And with this idea and the gap remark you saw, what is it just like a day in the life at ESR look like? What does that look like?
So one of the really nice things about our work is that we actually do have on the ground projects. So it's not just, like talking about issues that we're disconnected from. So we have an office in Egypt, in the heart of the Nile Delta, where most of the fish farming happens, and I have a team there that are,
Right up.
are often out working with farmers, working with fish or shrimp or various species are being farmed there. We have the same in Kenya, so we have programs where we work with farmers directly. In Tanzania and Zanzibar, we also
What is
have.
what
Go
does
ahead, sorry.
work with?
Work
What
with.
does work with? Yeah, like when you say work with, what does that actually look like?
Yeah. So we build relationships with farmers, right? So, for example, when they have issues, they know that we can help them. They say, "Oh, my fish aren't feeding as well." So we say, "Okay." Um, we go to their sites. We take some samples. We look at the water conditions. We look at the feed that they're giving. We look at their notes. So we're trying to always get them to keep notes, better records, because then we can trace when problems arise. If mortalities happen, we take samples and send them to a lab and see, what's the source of that outbreak of a disease. Or is there something here that, can we learn from that? But almost always there's some
Mm.
kind of water quality aspect. The fish never start dying, even if there's a disease issue. It's always the water deteriorating that leads to them actually getting sick. And
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So that's what we find in the
So the environmental qualities,
yeah.
the main factors in food sickness.
Absolutely, because it just makes them more susceptible to diseases that are already in the water. I mean, most
Mm.
of these pathogens are there. It's not,
Totally.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you keep
Yeah,
fish,
that that,
so
that,
you
well,
know
that makes
that.
sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I was like literally thinking that. I was like, yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, all through my years of research and looking in just in the Korean hobbyist industry, it's like, yeah, water quality matters. Water quality matters.
Absolutely.
I kind of apologize, kind of cut you off before. You were saying, you've got a base or operations to some extent in Egypt, in Africa. You
Yeah, so
said Tanzania, I think is where you got to.
Kenya and Tanzania both we have operations, yeah. Yeah. So that's the main three. I mean, we have other smaller things, but maybe it's not worth talking about. Although maybe for your audience, like we're starting to work with sturgeon, which is quite interesting, but I can come back to that later. Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Over to you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking like, yeah, like the Tanzanian cichlids, which is an aquarium like, hobbyist, popular fish. So yeah, that's really cool. Uh, to to know that you're working in those kinds of areas. What kind of challenges do you see wildlife facing? Well, obviously, there's like you see a general challenge, But what are some specific challenges that you personally are seeing and you believe are maybe vital to find a solution to, or at least worth considering?
Yeah. So I guess I'd have to. I would be. It'd be rude of me not to select something from an aquatic world, since that's the one I, feel very strongly about. But I would actually say that in general, even during my studies, it was the issue that I found most disturbing. Is this idea of like animals encroaching on human territory or human areas, and like elephants in Africa or India, where they're close to human habitation, and it becomes a problem for humans, and even tigers. I
Yeah.
always thought
Yeah.
well, I always felt like this, they have equal right to be there. I know that we're the priority, but this encroachment part always used to bother me, I have to say, and still does. Like when I hear farmers killing elephants because they're like destroying their lands or whatever, and it just feels like there has to be a better way
Yeah.
to manage a situation like that. Of course, that doesn't affect me personally because I don't work in areas like that. But I was just saying to you that
Yeah,
like that was one of the wildlife issues that used to get me the most. Like how do we deal with that sort of situation? But for us, I suppose it's this idea of thinking of aquatic animals as resources, even wild fish. So when you know in like you said, Tanzania, so the big lakes in Tanzania have a huge amount of biodiversity. Like some of the most rich endemic populations, and the idea that what small scale fishermen, when they go out to catch, they're not intending to catch some of the more exotic ones, but when they do, they feel like, well, this might catch, and there's not too much thought about the bigger picture, and preserving the lake, because they
Yeah.
really are blessed with some amazing biodiversity, and it's always that
and
challenge.
is
Go
that
ahead.
like
Yeah, go ahead.
the is that like the byproduct, by waste? What's
Yeah,
exactly the words that's used in that idea?
bycatch. Yeah, bycatch.
Bycatch, yeah,
Yeah.
bycatch.
Yeah, but in their case, I don't even know if they count it as bycatch, because they don't really know what they're going out to catch. They're just sort of like, opportunistic in a way. They're like, I need to make a living. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that, that's unfortunately the realities, that you need to make a living, feed your family, uh, put food on the table, and so on. So you go out there thinking, well, I hope to catch something that I like to eat, but if I don't catch that, I'm not gonna just release whatever I catch, even if it's something that I don't even know if it has market value. I'll find a way to cook it. That's many fishing communities have this like attitude. I'm
Yeah.
talking about really small scale communities in like places like Lake Tanganyika,
Yeah,
for example.
it's
Yeah,
kind of sounds like personal experience kind of involved in this, because this
100%.
this really does sound like you are learning and listening to the farmers, because this is a perspective that isn't often spoken about. So, can I ask, why do you think that understanding the perspective of the people that are actually fishing in these smaller kind of industries, or even maybe in the large scale, but understanding these farmers, why does having that relationship matter in your work?
I mean, we talk about stakeholders all the time. Stakeholders, and if we want to bring about change, we have to work with the people who are the main stakeholders. And there's uh, trying to create policies or standards or things for people without involving them is just never going to work. Just never going to follow those, let's say. But I think also I believe in behavioral change, and I believe that people want to do things better. There is a motivation to improve in general, and sometimes it's just a lack of knowledge. That people don't realize that, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
actually could do this
Yeah.
instead, and it has benefits for me. So I think that engaging the people who really are on the ground and are working with wildlife directly are the ones that uh, we work with them so that they can work better with the wildlife. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about wildlife. What has been some standout moments of like wildlife moments out in the bush, out in the wild, and like you had a connection or an interaction, whether it's small or big. Uh, but maybe even you learn something in that moment, or you appreciate it really deeply. Something. What does anything like that kind of come to mind? What comes to mind when I say these things?
Um, so I think one of my earlier scuba diving experiences was in I can't Sipadan in Malaysia, an island. So it's on the in a part of Malaysia, Borneo, which is split between Malaysia and Indonesia. There's a really well-known diving spot there called Sipadan, and it was actually one of my earlier experiences. I think I was maybe a bit too like beginner to really appreciate it, but it was still amazing. We found ourselves swimming in the middle of, well, we weren't swimming, we were just like floating along, I guess, and there was always like barracudas around us, and just seeing the how they keep spaces between them in the shoal, like they almost perfectly maintain the distances between each other, and I was really in
Mm.
awe about how like nature just sort of has this like patterns and aligns itself in a certain way, and like when they move, they all move together, and there's like perfect symmetry. Just it's really amazing to watch, and we were like sort of in it.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, they were kind of going around us perfectly. Like, we didn't have to do anything. Yeah.
And for those who might not know what a barracuda is, what is a barracuda? Obviously, it's a fish. What
Yeah.
kind of fish is it?
As a predatory fish, it's pelagic. It's a schooling fish, so they really have to school in order to perform many of their functions. Yeah, it's a fish I have a lot of
Mm.
admiration for, and marine fish, of course. So go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Pelagic. I've heard the word. I have forgotten the word. What is pelagic?
So they're not benthic or demersal. They're off the sea floor, so they're like they use the water column quite freely. Like they can't really use uh, a sea floor, for example. They have to be moving in the middle of the currents. Yeah. So like
Okay, so
sardines,
a
mackerels,
pelagic
tuna.
fish is quite in the center top kind of portion
Exactly.
of the aquatic column.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, and that stood out to you. You obviously fish, so it was quite a standout moment because you know fish are in the water, and then and seeing kind of how it said that nature has shapes and some kind of like symmetry, or would you say connectedness in nature,
For
or
sure.
evidence of something greater than just nature? What do you see in that?
I mean, I guess I'm biased because of what I studied as well, right? So if you studied a bit of ecology, especially behavioral ecology, and you see that, the sort of things that are passed down from, parents to offspring in birds, the famous experiment that Tim Bergen did in the 60s, I want to say, he showed that the babies of this certain bird species, when it's born, it knows that it has to peck its mom's beak in this particular red dot, and and if it doesn't do it there, the mom won't release the food. And like how are they born knowing to do that? So those kind of things have always been fascinating to me. I guess that's kind of what I was thinking, like referring
Mm.
to when I was talking about like the greater patterns or just things that animals do naturally. Okay, we can talk about if it,
Mm.
bringing you back to fish. Eels. Maybe your audience or yourself knows a bit about eels. Eels, we still don't understand their life cycle very well, but we know that they're born in the Sargasso
Yeah, I'm
Sea,
hearing
which is in
that.
the Caribbean, and they migrate all the way to Europe. They fill part of their life cycle there, and they always go back to where they were born to spawn again. And it's just something that no one's ever really understood. We have evidence of it, but
Yes.
yeah. And salmon are the
Don't
same.
get it.
Some
Yeah, I mean, I know salmon again, a massive migratory animal. Big deal. You said that still little is known about salmon. You were saying like
eels.
I forgot the exact species or
Eels.
eels. Eels the one, and then but you mentioned something about salmon as
Oh
well.
yeah, I was just saying because like salmon are anadromous, and is it eels are catadromous? I always confuse those two. But like
You have to break that word down for me. I was
is
seeing.
like basically they live part of their life cycle in uh okay, let's take in the case of salmon, they're born in freshwater uh rivers usually. sometimes lakes too, but
Hmm.
mostly in rivers, like quite upstream. And then that's when they're young, so they're basically safe in the river environment until they get to a certain size where they can migrate to the marine environment, to the sea. So they'll swim uh, downstream. Yeah, yeah, 'cause, yeah, downstream to the sea, and that's where they'll grow and live their lives, and everything. They basically also change their physiology to tolerate salt water. And then when they get a bit older and it's time for them to spawn, they'll swim back to where they were born in the river. So they'll swim upstream, like they'll
Mm.
expend amount, incredible amounts of energy to swim upstream against the current, all that, to go exactly to where they were born, and then they'll lay their eggs or spawn there, and the cycle repeats itself basically. And I've always found that incredible. I've been to sites where spawn like salmon spawning sites where basically you see the salmon coming and they're basically dying. They're just in such bad shape by the time they've come up the
Mm.
river.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like they actually sacrifice their lives to do that, to fulfill their life cycle. To me, it was just like
mm.
incredible, you know?
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. What was the word you used to describe those kinds of fish?
Oh yeah, so I think I said anadromous, but there's three words. There's
Anadromous,
yeah.
yes.
So I always confuse which one is anadromous and which one is catadromous and which one is diadromous. But yeah, there's so ones that basically ones that are born in the freshwater and then go to the marine environment, and then there's ones that do the opposite. So eels are the opposite. They are born in the sea and they migrate to Europe from the Caribbean to freshwaters in Europe, rivers and lakes and so on. Yeah.
Mm. Ethical seafood research. The name of your the as an entity business. What word
Not,
do I
not
describe?
it's a non-profit. We could say NGO or non-profit. Yeah,
Non-profit,
we're not charity
of
because
course.
in the
Of
UK
course.
the word charity has like a status, a regulated status, so we don't have that. But we are a non-profit. Yeah, definitely.
I know. Okay, so you're a non-for-profit. What does ethical mean?
Yeah, that's a very tricky question, isn't it? Like because to every person it's a
Yeah,
different thing. I think like to me personally,
at the bare bones.
yeah. So sometimes I compare it or contrast it with the word responsible. So okay. I guess maybe I should give a bit of background. The word sustainable is something we've been talking about for a long time. Sustainable development, sustainable
Mm.
fisheries, sustainable aquaculture, sustainable
Mm.
wildlife management, sustainable forestry. That word has been so overused that I personally don't even know what it means sometimes. In the context
Mm.
of the food system, um, yeah, okay, it might be sustainable to stock. I don't know, to put all these. Have you seen these pictures of chickens like in a factory farm? Like they're so crowded in
Yes.
like yeah. So that's
Yes.
sustainable because you're making economically it's good. The profit's good. They produce fine. Maybe you could argue that improving conditions for them might lead to lower disease outbreaks, but still, probably it's economically more profitable to give the animals very little space and like really, and then even the
Mm.
ones that die, it's okay because you have so many in there, right? Now that's probably
Mm.
sustainable, but is it ethical? So that's to me how I contrast it. Uh, it's probably not
Mm.
an ethical thing because, okay, look at how these what they call Franken chickens now, if you've heard of them. Like they're chickens that have been bred to.
Franken
Yeah,
chickens.
yeah. It's yeah. So they've
What's
been,
going on?
so
Well,
they're
what are
chicken.
Franken chickens?
Well, genetically, like genetic selection, no, so selective breeding, we've become so good at selectively breeding animals, especially farm animals, that we have these chickens that grow so fast that they can't even support their own body, like their legs cannot support their body weight, and they kind of have all these deformities.
Yes.
So in the UK, some of the animal advocates they call them Franken chickens because they're sort of like an aberration to nature, like it's such an unnatural way to be. Um, so I was just giving that as an
Mm.
example of yeah, probably sustainability wise, it's okay because you're still making money and the farm is doing well or the operation is going well, but is it ethical to to inflict that sort of suffering just so we can get more meat out of an animal? And those are questions I ask myself a lot. I don't work with chickens too much, but even in our world, like salmon, for example, sorry, um, they say that most salmon that are farmed are deaf, because they've been bred for other um, traits, and traits like hearing are not that important, so they can't hear very well.
Mm.
Many of them also have heart defects. Um, they only live a couple of years anyway, so I guess the way that they justify it is that they're not it's fine. But is it fine? I do believe that if we're going to eat animals, we have a duty. Again, like I said to you about this, like we have a duty to care, like a high. I think you said a higher calling, as
Mm.
you put it. I think we have a
Mm.
responsibility to give animals what they call a life worth living. Sometimes people laugh at us when we say that, but I don't think it's actually as
Mm.
ridiculous as it sounds. Like free range
Yeah,
eggs. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
interesting. I can see what the difference between sustainability but ethical. But what? So, but you're saying it's important that it's ethical because we. Why exactly? Like, why is it important that
Yeah. So
it's ethical?
yeah, I mean, there's some people who definitely argue that I don't care. These animals are just here. They're resources. They're just here for machine. They're like machines. I input,
Mm.
output. I get what I want. Why should I care? But so I guess I'm from more of a philosophical background. That if you saw a child drowning, would you stop to save it, even if you don't know that child?
Mm.
And if you know that your actions are causing a lot of suffering, should you act differently? I believe that humans are aware, and we have that calling, as you put it, to do things better and
Mm.
to be. We care. We definitely care about animals. The only reason we don't care about the issues is because we don't know about them. I mean, okay, Jaden, look at what kids' books look like for farm animals. They always paint this
Mm.
beautiful picture of like an old man with his cows and chickens and all that. That's hardly what farming looks like anymore. I mean, that still exists, but that's a tiny, tiny, tiny proportion. Most farm like animals that are farmed in large, large quantities in conditions that are not ideal and don't meet their needs. So my point is like this almost is kind of washing, like humane washing or greenwashing. And when people find out that this is where their food is coming from, they are concerned. You can't even get access to factory
Mm.
farms. Like it's really hard to go to these places and go in and like see what they're doing. Yeah. I think deep down they know that
Mm.
it's like kind of shocking to see that.
Can I ask, what do you think is like the foundational issue with people's difference of opinion or thought of how we should operate and respect or interact uh, with not just wildlife but also our farming animals, the animals within farming. Like, what do you think that the difference or couple of the differencing of opinions are like at a bare bones kind of level? Because like you said, ethical, like it's hard to describe, hard to talk about because there's differencing of opinions.
Yeah.
And he said that people don't care because of lack of knowledge as well. Just before, so like I guess kind of what do you what do you mean by that, and what do you think? I guess is some of those bare bones kinds of foundational differences where we tend to split.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not. At the risk of not answering the question directly, I'll try, but definitely let me know if that's not answering what you're asking. Because
Oh.
so we definitely at ESR we try not to be prescriptive. We don't tell people what to eat or what not to eat. That's a personal choice, I believe. And I don't think that, like, as you mentioned, vegan activists and stuff, like, of course we know about them and we work with them, but um, we don't
Mm.
take it as far as telling people what they should and shouldn't eat. We just tell the people who are producing the
Right.
food, can we do this better? So we try to push that side.
Mm.
Of course, engaging consumers is important. I guess my point is, uh, whether you choose to eat animals or not, um, if you if you're we just want you to be fully informed of where your food is coming from and how it's being produced and so on. So that's the angle we take. But I mean, to your point, I think there's a lot of, it's a very heated debate about in my world is what they call welfareism. Like, can we improve the welfare of animals, or abolitionism on the other side? So should we abolish all, not eat any kind of animals, basically? And I think we're very far from
Yeah.
abolitionism. Like, I don't really. I'm not really up for abolition, because I feel like, for now, like, veganism is still a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of overall um, food preference, and let's work with the masses, let's work with people, as opposed to like telling them, oh no, what you're doing is wrong. So I feel like it gets a bit prescriptive and kind of a bit righteous, a bit like, holier, like I'm better than you
Um,
because I don't eat this. That that
I,
that that can get toxic very fast. So I try
and,
to stay away from that and just think about how can we do things better, and ask that question again: Is this ethical? Not just is this profitable? Is this
mm,
sustainable? Yeah. I feel like I didn't
mm.
really touch upon your points, so if you want to elaborate, I'm happy to keep going.
Is there like what where do people tend to divert? Maybe is a way to say it. Like maybe we agreed we are people, cool. Um, Step up from that, we are people, and animals are people in theory of conversation. But then people like veer off at that point where they're like, oh, we're less so, we're more so, kind of thing. Like, what are those? What are those forks in disagreement in this topic of
Uh,
ethics?
okay, okay. I suppose I could just, refer to my own experience, right? So I haven't mentioned anything about myself yet, Jaden, but I'm from Egypt originally, so that's where my heritage is from.
Mm.
And Egypt is a
Awesome.
majority Muslim country, right? So Muslims believe, according to scripture, that animals were put on earth. Well, yeah, yes, for us to look after them, but very much we have the right to eat them. So telling Muslim people that they
Mm.
can't eat meat doesn't usually go well, because they believe that you're basically, yeah. So that's already a fork in the road, like you're saying, right? So
Yes,
and it's
yes.
all kind of forks for people. I was just giving you one like that's very close to home, which is why I try not to wade into that
Mm.
debate of should we or should we not do this. But I just thought
Mm.
of something else, Jaden, as you were saying. I was thinking, even if we leave the food system aside, like zoos, some of my closest allies, they get so up in arms about, animals being kept in captivity in zoos or um, in the pet trade and so on. And I'm not sure I
Mm.
have very
Mm.
well-formed opinions on that, but there's definitely an ethical argument there. Is it ethical that we have these animals kept in places just for our enjoyment? Again, I'm not saying that I have an opinion.
Mm.
I'm just saying that, the topic of ethics comes up again in many things when it comes to dealing with
Yeah,
animals, and
it does. There's a lot of different spaces, and you're not wrong. So I guess that's why one of the reasons why I think it's interesting to kind of hear what your thoughts are on like these forks of opinion, in opinion, and where we tend to split. Because um, do you think if we're able to come to those, like figure out what those forks in opinion are, do you think that conversation will work better in this kind of space, or is there a different approach that you like to take?
yes, definitely. I feel like understanding those differences. So if you want to make change, whatever change you're trying to make, you definitely need to work with all kinds of people, and those forks, as you call them, is a very useful way of identifying and bridging those gaps or forks. You asked me earlier about working with farmers or working with fisher communities, and like, why do we work with them? And I guess it also comes back to that idea that even if we have different opinions, like we want them to do things differently, or we think it should be done differently, we have to work with them. and respect that they have their traditions, that they have their reasons, they have all sorts of justifications for or valid reasons
Mm,
for needing to do things a certain way.
mm,
You know, yeah,
mm. Yeah, and having you said valid reasons, and so being aware of each individual's kind of perspectives on a matter is what you say is important
yeah.
to have hopefully a positive outcome to a conversation.
Yeah. One example, and it's not from my direct work, but it's one that I always found quite um, informative, indicative, maybe is a better word. There's a community in the a Russian Arctic area, I guess Siberia, that they literally can't grow any vegetables where they are. Like they can't grow anything, right?
Mm,
And they were under criticism, like they basically only eat animals where they are. And there was some like vegan
mm,
push, like some external forces trying to like tell them, hey, you guys should, not hunt all of these wild animals. And they were saying, well, actually, we have to any vegetables we get, we have to, uh, the carbon footprint of it and also flying it out and the cost. And I guess the only thing we can do here. So
mm.
it's about also tailoring your advice to, not everything works for everyone, telling people to make
Mm.
lifestyle changes when they don't have the option, I think is insensitive, inconsiderate, and probably unethical too, so I just saying this another flip side to it is all I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very interesting. But I didn't think about that as well. The challenge of that because yeah, it's kind of hard to grow a cucumber when the seed freezes before it starts.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really been pretty tough. If quickly on that topic of the frozen kind of space, is there much? I'm thinking greenhouses. Is there much kind of a successful idea or approach to greenhouses in these colder environments?
Yeah, so I mean, I just gave that example because it was someone that had given that story in a seminar or webinar that I had attended, and I thought, oh, that was a really interesting example of how some solutions just cannot be, rolled out to everyone. You can't just,
Flat rate.
yeah, exactly. But I don't know too much about greenhouses, unfortunately. Sorry.
Hey, that's totally cool. So we've seen,
Yeah.
we've started this conversation. We're having a good one so far. Man, I'd like to hear, like you said, you were born in Egypt, born and raised in
I was
Egypt.
actually born in,
Like,
I was born,
where
I was actually born in Saudi Arabia. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
so born in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so you're born in Saudi Arabia, Arabia. Uh, where from there? Yeah, you've just been born. You're out of the womb. Where you run to next?
Never thought about it like that, but yeah. So my parents at the time were working in Saudi Arabia. So my parents are both Egyptian, but there was Egypt had just come out of, it was an independent country coming out of British colonial rule, and the job market wasn't great. So my parents had moved to Saudi Arabia, and I just happened to be born there. Definitely, I have no more affiliation to it than that. But it is also an Arabic-speaking country, so Egypt and Saudi Arabia have some like commonalities, let's say. Where to from being born. So the first 14 years of my life, I was between Saudi Arabia. I also went to Kuwait for a bit, but then the Gulf War broke out, so we left, and we were in Egypt for some of those years. So I mean, I say Egypt because that is where I'm from, and I lived there for a while, and my family's still there, and so on. But I definitely had a bit of a diverse childhood, let's say.
Yeah, okay, so you moved around a lot. Did you work much, or did you have much of like childhood experiences with wildlife, or what were your parents doing for work? Were they into that as well?
Yeah, so actually, I think it's actually quite. Sorry, there's birds drinking from the puddle of water in my balcony that I've never noticed before because I never sit here. Talking of wildlife, it just caught my eye. There's like all these like really interesting looking birds. Um, Sorry for that segue, but
Neat.
I mean, you have snakes behind you, so I have to.
I do, so that's fine.
I don't have too much interactions with wildlife here. So actually, not too much. Like, you know what? I think that's part of the reason that I was interested in it as I started growing up. Because people in my part of the world, they believe that, animals are something that should be kept away from us. And, that even keeping pets is something that has been really slow. Uh, Many people don't like.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my parents don't have anything against animals, but I don't think we used to go like to nature really. Actually, we don't even have that much nature. For us, the desert is nature, and it's not the most
Mm.
welcoming, hospitable environment. We used to go camping sometimes, and you'd see like the odd fox, and that would be exciting, and some gazelles.
Oh,
But not so much.
gazelles, and we don't have
Yeah.
any of those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I think that was maybe my experience in that part of my life. But as I grew up, I started, realizing that I like biology and I like animals and so on. Yeah.
Okay, as you grew up, it's like a realization, kind of not because you had it when you were younger, but because you didn't have it, and you're like, and you did you have any maybe influences like wildlife wise? Well, when you were younger, did you like to read books by someone specific? Did you watch DVDs of someone? Like it's wildlife, you have to know a little bit about something to gain, I guess, interest in it. So, what were those
Yeah.
somethings?
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel it's a bit cliche, Jaden. Sorry, but like, of course, I'm a David Attenborough fan, and I grew up listening to, well, watching, but listen to his voice, I should say. But definitely nature documentaries. Like now, I watch them with my son, and I wonder if he takes it in the same way I do, because he gets scared of things. Whereas, like for me, seeing animals attack other animals or running after them, like it was fascinating. I never felt scared. I felt like this is natural.
Mm,
So I don't know if he's just like of a
mm.
different disposition to me, or if I was weird. I don't know, but yeah, I used to be fascinated by like what animals do naturally, and the
Yeah.
absolutely, and reading books. So I used to get lost. Do you remember the days of encyclopedias when people used to actually just like, pick up a book from a
Yes.
yeah? I used to just get lost in
Like
an
a
encyclopedia.
thick one. Yeah.
Yeah, like now, of course, anything you just Google online, right? And you look it up. But I used to
Mm.
just like pick I don't know, E or whatever letter, and I just start reading and like, especially things about nature. Used to always get me, and things like not the Guinness Book of Records, but there was like ones that were just about animals and all the cool things that animals can do. Those were the things that always caught my attention. And they are the same books that I also try to buy my son, like subliminally, uh, getting that message in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering, like, you've got this obviously a very big part of your life with wildlife and working in the fishing industry and the ethics and that kind of thing. How do you kind of bring in your son into that? Like, are you how do you, I guess, parent, or what do you focus on with the knowledge that you have?
Yeah. So that's actually one of the things I was thinking when I was talking about zoos, that like I actually have to keep like from some people in my professional life, I don't even tell them that I take my son to aquariums because they're like, "How could you, even though you know that aquariums are this and that?" And, like again, I don't have a strong opinion about it. It's like there's many aquariums that they actually just take rescue rescue fish and rescue sharks and all things, right? That from ones
Mm.
that have like lost a fin, ones that have all sorts of things. And so I don't want to like just judge all aquariums badly. And even then, I still believe there's an educational role that they play. And I haven't done the studies to
Mm.
know whether it's overall something bad for animals or not. But like I try to stay away from things that I don't know for sure like are good or bad. But my gut instinct is that it can't be that harmful. If these places are
Mm.
providing suitable environmental enrichment, are feeding animals
Mm.
appropriately. Probably dolphins, I feel a bit more strongly about because, do we really need to have these shows like where animals perform? Like, I don't know, you
Mm.
know? So maybe that one I feel
Mm.
a bit more strongly about. So like if my son said like he really wanted to go to it, might have a conversation and tell him, look, I don't really love these, places that do that. But in terms of my work, he's a bit young still, but I do plan to, explain to him the different aspects that go into where food comes from. Definitely get him thinking
Mm.
about that. You know, okay, you like to eat this fish. Where did this fish come from? What did the people who caught it catch it have to do in order to it to arrive on your plate? So just to be aware. I don't think I'd
Mm.
say to him, no, don't eat this. Just so he can grow up like with a bit more of a critical mind. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, well, you said that grab a critical mind. So, critical thinking is an important part of this of figuring out our place here on Earth. And maybe it's a massive jump from a kind of statement from just a small comment, but critical thinking is important.
Yeah.
Obviously, in this, how does one even critical thinking? How does one even think critically?
Okay, I mean, I guess I was actually, yeah, you're right. It's a huge jump because I was actually just really thinking of something very small. Okay, so I remember saying to him like a year or two ago, like just out of curiosity, I said to him, "Where do you think bananas come from?" He really likes banana, so I said to him, "Where do you think bananas come
Mm.
from?" And he said, "From the shop."
Where they go from?
Yeah, the shop. And I'm like, "Okay, where do you think the shop gets them from?" He's like, "From monkeys." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, monkeys eat the bananas if anything." And like, just I mean, that's normal. Like he's very young, but um, I think most people don't think about that, especially young people. Why would they, right? So we even take them to farms. We tell them, okay, yeah, the milk comes from the cow. The eggs come from chicken and so on. But fish. No one really talks about how fish are caught and all this, and or farmed. Like, remember that I'm very much focused on the farming side of things. At least fishing is easy. You just go with a net,
Mm.
you catch them, and it's kind of easy to understand. But how are fish
Mm.
farmed is a bit more complicated. So
And
uh, one of my critical thinking is just asking where is this coming from. Do you know what? Actually, Jaden, I'm guilty of this. Like a lot of agricultural produce. I couldn't even tell you the tree that it grows on. I try to educate myself because I know it's embarrassing. Like the first time I saw coffee beans in like Costa Rica, was it? I was like, oh, that's what coffee looks like. And of course, like everyone was laughing at me because I'd never seen coffee. Or things like
yeah,
avocado trees. I guess you have them in Australia. Maybe that you guys have a lot of avocado trees, no?
I do. Funnily enough, I was actually working with avocado trees just yesterday, so I know where avocados come from.
But you can't know everything, right? Like sometimes it's a tuber or it grows above ground, but like so that's what I meant by critical thinking. Just like
Yeah.
asking what the thing I'm buying from the supermarket, where it came from, and is it normal that I'm buying mangoes in winter? And how is that? You know, these are what I mean by critical thinking. Not at his age. I don't expect him to be thinking about it, his age, but
Mm. So, talking about age, obviously he's not 16 or 20 and thinking that bananas come from monkeys. Can I ask? We'll see. How old are you at the moment?
me, I'm 38.
38. Oh, you look so young. That's good.
I
Uh,
try. I try. Yeah.
38. The trying's paying off. Can we go back like from pre 38 till now?
Sure.
What have been maybe more so for your uh, maybe teens, 20s, and after small moments that it at that time it was like maybe a really challenging kind of decision for you to make. What do I meant to do with this? Do you go there? Do you go here? Why did you make the decision that you made, and how did you make the decision?
Are we talking about just across all my life, like things that decisions I've made, and
Yeah, well, I guess yeah, because maybe if I specify it, that make it easier for you. Like in regards to your career in wildlife and working with wildlife, because yes, life is a very big thing. There's lots of decisions we make, but more so specifically with your career with wildlife and now a founder of ECR. So that's kind of also what I meant.
Sure, yeah. So, I think my first job out of university was with. So I went to university in Canada in Toronto. I did environmental science, and I had a few internships I did while during my studies there. I did three. The second one was with a electricity company in Ontario, the biggest, like the most populated province in Canada. So, like for any new power lines that were being built, we were doing the studies to see like what kind of habitats they were crossing, and should we route the lines differently and so on. And it was interesting because I felt like I was using my skills, my biological skills, let's say, in a applied way, and the pay was good and all of that. But I don't know, I felt like I was selling out a bit on conservation, and that was really what I wanted to do. So I left that job, even though, and actually everyone I worked with at the time are still there, all there, and they're all on really huge salaries. They all have massive houses and great lives. Definitely not my case, but I left to pursue something different, and I wanted to do more conservation type work, and I don't regret it because
Mm.
I think it worked out for me, and I enjoy what I do. Definitely, I wasn't happy, just carrying out studies that uh, sort of, you know, continue the model of development that was in existence. That's one example of a fork in the road, I guess, for me. I went back to, I did a master's in
Mm.
applied ecology conservation. And oh, yeah, the third internship I did during my time in Canada was working on fish. And that's where I really, really, really started to like see that, this is something I want to be
Mm.
doing. Yeah. I'm happy to talk a bit more about that if you like.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you said that you did a couple internships. I think it's
Three.
three
Yeah.
internships.
Yeah.
So, what did that look like? So, how'd you get them? How'd you get them? Uh, where'd you find them? And I guess then specify on the one you worked at Seven.
So I missed that last word you said, but where'd you find them or how'd you find them?
Yeah, where did you find them? How did you find them? What many? I guess a little bit what the experience was like,
Okay.
and then you said that you were able to work with salmon. Did you say
Well, fish, but I will. There's
as
also salmon. Yeah, I'll talk about salmon. Yeah, no problem.
that was a lucky guess, but you worked with fish in general.
Yeah. So, in Canada, there's a program called co-op. So, I guess the cooperative comes from cooperative, and it's like the program is it's a requirement that you have three work placements of 4 months each during your 4-year degree, and they help you find them. So they have a database of opportunities, and you apply to them. And because they know you're from this program, they give you preference. They get paid from the government to like the places that you work. They all have like a government grant. If they take you, there's like tax benefits to them and stuff. So it's kind of mutually beneficial, and you get paid a good salary. So it was a really really good experience. All three of
Yeah.
my internships were different places and good experiences. So that's how I found them. Um, the first one was with the Ministry of Social Development in Canada. I was working on homelessness issues, very different to, yeah, what we're talking about here. But it was good to understand how policy was made, how government departments work, and so on.
Yeah, it
Uh,
would have been very interesting all the same.
yeah, for sure. And I think I was like 19 or something, right? So, and then the second internship was this one with I'm saying internship, but they call it co-op work placement. The second one was with
Right.
a company called Hydro One, which was the one that has the power lines, and we were doing the studies, the environmental studies for the new power lines. And then the third one was with, again, with the government, but in an applied context. So this was the Ministry of Environment for the province of Ontario, and I was with the team that publishes the sport fish contaminant monitoring guide. So every year they publish a guide for like the public to know how much of fish that they catch recreationally, angling, they can eat safely. So, in order to produce that guide, they had to sample fish from all the lakes of the province and come up with like safe levels. So, okay, there's this much mercury in you said salmon, so I could use salmon as example. We found that in the salmon samples that we took, there was this much mercury, so we don't recommend that pregnant women especially eat this much of that. Um, Children should not eat this much of trout caught in this area more than this much per week or per year, whatever. Because there are Canadian communities that live off
Interesting.
the lakes. It's a very popular activity. Hunting, fishing, very popular in Canada. I imagine Australia is not too dissimilar, no?
At least with regards to hunting, we've got, I think, stricter
Okay,
restrictions
okay.
on that. But yeah, pig hunting and it is a big one. I think it's probably one of the bigger ones that I'm aware of. Fishing as well. Fishing's big. Yeah, pig hunting. Yeah, yeah.
Pigs, really? Like wild pigs?
Yeah. That seems to be at least as far as I'm aware, it seems to be something that is, you get like pigging dogs and people seem to talk out pig hunting seems to be
Interesting.
a topic that I've often heard of. So I think it's a big thing,
Very.
That's but then fishing, yeah, big fishing, camping, boating, camping, fishing. BCF, that's a store in Australia. Uh, it stands for boating, camping, fishing, and I think that's kind of says it.
Fair enough. Very interesting. You see, I learn a lot from these as well. So yeah. So basically, I was just saying that Canada is a big fishing place, like recreationally, but also for food. So we were producing those guides, and my title was biomonitoring technician. So I was helping the senior scientists go out and sample fish. So we went to all parts of the province. We'd go in like ATVs and like always like cool boats and like big trucks and stuff to
Yeah.
to access like remote areas just to get our sample. And I'd never, obviously, coming from a desert place and as a child anyway, and just not being like BCF or like we don't have that kind of culture really. I started
Mm.
realizing, wow, like all this like boating and being out on the water was really cool. I really liked it. So that's one side. But at the same time, I really liked working with fish. Not maybe not I liked as much as like empathized. Like fish to me, especially like inland freshwater fish, are really vulnerable. So
Mm.
that if the water dries out, and it does in many places, water levels drop, the tides come in, for example, and water levels drop, suddenly these fish like their habitat's gone, right? Or they're obviously adapted to
Mm.
this, right? Okay, the tide is not a good example because that's marine, but I was just saying that like when inland waters dry up, fish are screwed, right? Yeah, excuse my language.
Kind of
uh
says it. That says it.
Birds can fly away. Yeah, some say no, no, not very far, or not always far enough, but they have a bit more leeway. I feel. Land animals, can run, but sometimes I felt like freshwater fish are kind of restricted. Sometimes, you know, they're in this like small creek, and that's kind of where they are, and that's if it dries up, or
Mm.
if humans. So this is the part that gets me. If humans mess with their habitat, they're completely at the mercy
Mm.
of activities around them. Yeah, and that's where I thought we had more
Mm.
responsibility to um, look after them better. That was a very long way of answering your question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, yeah. No, I've never seen a fish run across a road, so I agree. Fish are definitely more screwed, as you said. Yes. Yes. That with that internship, you said there's a big fork in the road. It sounds awesome, like an awesome experience. You kind of didn't have that outdoorsy kind of wildlife interactions growing up, but then you had this internship, and you're like, hey, I like that.
Absolutely. Down to the smallest details, by the way. So, like, okay, this sounds really silly, but my supervisor told me like he had these cool sunglasses, like some kind of Oakleys, I guess, but they were polarized. And he told me polarized sunglasses you can see better in the water. I guess you know this because you're from a place where you guys are outdoors a lot. And I was like, oh, cool. I can even get like specialized sunglasses. And like just the idea of going to these shops to buy waders, all this equipment, I really liked it. I felt like I was, I don't know, like uh, almost like a superhero. No, like you have all this different gear. Gear. The word is gear.
That's awesome. From your early 20s to now, like, what was that kind of give a quick overview of those years? What did that look like, and what were you aiming in that time period? Aiming for?
Okay, so after that, I wanted to do more aquatic work, and like I mentioned to you, so I felt like I was kind of selling out by working for this uh, electricity company. So I was fortunate to find a fully paid for master's degree in Europe. It was between multiple countries
Oh,
under a scheme called Erasmus Mundus. So that was based in France, Germany, UK, and Portugal. I didn't go to Portugal at all. I was just in the three other countries. And I for you have to do like a dissertation project in the second year. For my dissertation project, I really want to work with fish, and I heard about this project in Uganda in Africa, and it was through a group that was in Canada actually, and I kind of begged them if they would like let me work with them, and I spent a few months out in Uganda doing something called telemetry. I guess you, at least, or maybe some of your listeners might be familiar. No, telemetry? Okay. So it's a very common technology used for tracking animals. So you might put like radio tags in them. You could put acoustic tags. You might put satellite tags. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about now, right? Yeah. So I guess
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm very biased towards aquatic stuff. So I always come back to aquatic things. But of course, telemetry is something that's come from wildlife on the ground, land, terrestrial wildlife.
That's true.
Yeah. So we were putting these tags in tilapia fish, Nile tilapia, but in the wild. So not in a farm context. We went to near Lake Victoria in Uganda, and we were catching. Actually, it was the fishermen that were catching the tilapia, and the ones that were big enough, we were putting tags in them, and then we were monitoring them for as long as we could until they died really, because they were eventually caught by fishing nets. Um, and no one really knows much about what tilapia do in the wild, like the spatial, what they call spatial data or movement behavior. So that was really interesting. That was the first time I'd worked in like a research context, running my own project on fish and using a bit more sophisticated tools. And I loved it. I just loved the idea of like field work, data collection, all that. Really, really, really appealed to me. I guess I wasn't thinking so much about like how is this helpful. At that point, I started thinking later about like, okay, is it just because I enjoy working with fish, or am I actually trying to make an impact? And that kind of brings us a bit closer to where I am now. But like, I don't think that was particularly impactful work. That project that was more descriptive. Sure, it helps because we need more science anyway to help us understand where we are and how to do things better. But yeah, so that was my first like bigger experience working with fish in a research context. And I'd also worked with the government of Canada on another telemetry project. I became a bit obsessed with telemetry because I thought it was really cool that you have insights into what fish are doing without actually following them, right? You just so I did some more telemetry work. After my master's, I had the opportunity of working with the UN. So I left animals, like I left the field for a bit, but it was a good opportunity and I couldn't turn it down. So I was working with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in Rome, with the Fisheries and Aquaculture
Neat.
Department. Yeah, it was very cool experience. Just to learn more about how the UN works and so on. And uh, during that time, I realized that where I was in my career, I'd like to research. I wasn't senior, no, I had very little experience, and the UN environment, I couldn't have progressed anyway. So I felt like I needed to do a PhD to upgrade my knowledge and skills and so on. So I went away and got funding for a PhD, and I did a PhD in the UK. On fish. So, and that's kind of what got me into fish welfare. So I can continue, but I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking, so I don't want to bore your listeners.
No, that's this is very interesting. This is very so UK. You said is where you did your the
PhD.
PhD,
Yeah.
or your focus on fish. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, and then we're looking mid-30s right now. It sounds
Late,
like.
late, late
Sorry,
twenties,
early
late twenties, early
late
thirties.
20s.
Yeah, late twenties, early thirties. Yeah.
Yeah, late 20s. Okay, in maybe in this final jump there. with all your PhDs, with your career experience so far, what has been a big learning experience that has shaped how you behave or shape how you make decisions in what you do now?
Wow. Um, See, I feel like I have to steer clear of like cliches, because the first thing that came to my mind was was a bit of a cliche. I remember in my
Go
very
for it.
okay, well, in my very first year of university, one of my professors said this to me, and it rings true a lot to me these days. That the more you know, the more you realize how little you know. So like anyone who like the people who talk like they know are the ones who really don't know much, like that's my experience, because it's a humbling thing. The more you learn about things, the more you realize we really don't know much, you know like there's so much we don't know about animals and their lives and their behaviors, and there's so many undiscovered species, and you know it's yes, we know a lot, but we still know very little. What in my work in animal welfare science, we know so little about the inner workings of animals, like their thoughts and feelings, and so we use proxies to address those issues. But in reality, we were never really gonna know what goes through a fish's head, or mind. If anything,
And
we know that from
and
the tests we do, we know that they like experiments, like behavioral tests, we know that they can learn to recognize faces, and they can learn to avoid painful stimuli. There's all kind of things we know about behaviors, which from that we know, okay, well, they must feel pain, they must feel this, they must, uh, uh, relate to stress. Oh yeah, and fish that are raised in a stressful environment, they have different behaviors to fish that are raised without a stressful environment. And I'm digressing a bit, but I'm just saying to you that like we're knowledge is a never-ending thing, And if you think that you know stuff, then you need to, come back to reality, and then
surprise.
yeah. And the word expert has no meaning to me, You might know more than other people on that particular topic, but let's be humble about what we know and what we don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Jaden. Sorry.
So there's that much information. There's two things you said. One was there's so many undiscovered species. Where do you think the most undiscovered species lie? Do you plan on going on an expedition to explore, or have you found any new species in your research? And another thing I was wondering is with this idea of ethics, and I guess it's maybe a really big topic as we kind of running swimming into shallower water in this conversation. The idea of sentience
Yeah.
and how that kind of plays into everything. So I was wondering maybe hold those two questions in situ and go with the first one and then land on that heavy one after that.
Yeah, I don't know where to start. So, okay, I guess the easy one is, unfortunately, I don't do too many expeditions anymore. Like, I really would like to get back out in the field and do like the kind of stuff I love to do. Uh,
Yeah.
Definitely never discovered any species. I know people who have, and actually, in our part of the world, like in the Middle East, in North Africa, there's a lot of species that are undiscovered. In fact, there's many species. It's a good news story, because there's many species that people think have gone extinct, but it's just because there's not enough surveying that goes on, and when they do surveys, they realize, oh, wow, we just found this like fox or this gazelle. Yeah, 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 it happens a lot because we don't have enough resources
A
to
whole gazelle.
like species. Yeah, 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 yeah. As one of my close
Wow.
colleagues, actually, like someone I studied with, he has a paper out not long ago about they rediscovered something that they assumed had just disappeared, but it's just because the government doesn't invest in like regular surveys, aerial surveys or terrestrial surveys, and there's areas where it's not safe to go. Like the army doesn't allow people to go for various reasons, and as a result, we've not actually been able to know whether these animals are still there or not. Anyway, that was kind of a nice story that sometimes we discover that species that we thought had gone extinct are still around. Do I know anyone who's discovered a species? Probably like a couple of insects. Yeah, I know some Brazilians. And to your point, so Brazil would probably be one of the places where I think has the highest number of undiscovered species. Um, just off the top of my head.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. The Amazon, all of
Yeah.
South America is incredibly rich. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Jaden.
What do you think makes an environment? You kind of touched on it a little bit. What makes an environment kind of more prone to undiscovered species?
So the denseness of the habitat. So actually, I was thinking just as you were saying that, I was actually gonna say that there's undiscovered peoples in the Amazon. Like there are tribes that have been, I think the word is uncontacted. So we know they're there, but we
Mm.
haven't contacted them because we know that from history, whenever we contact tribes that have never been around civilization, modern day humans, we end up killing them because the
Mm.
diseases, the stories, right? So there's
Mm.
loads of this.
Mm.
I don't want to say loads because it's not an area that I know about, but there are tribes in the Amazon for sure that are uncontacted. They monitor them from far, like using drones, just to check to learn about them and to see how they're doing. But there's very clear policies around not contacting them because it can end up being quite detrimental. So if you keep that in mind, if these tribes are uncontacted, then clearly there'll be animals that are uncontacted or unfound or right. So what
Mm.
make what makes um, an area more likely to have unfound or undiscovered, I don't know what the right word is, species? Okay, let me tell you this. I've flown over like from the south of America to the north, like across the Amazon, and it's just this endless amount of vegetation. Again, maybe it's striking for me because I'm not from there, right? So I'm from a desert area. Yeah, we see a lot of desert, but maybe Australia has some of these dense vegetation areas too, but Canada does actually. But like you see so much vegetation. Like yeah, they're clearing a bit of it for soy plantations and for agriculture and so or grazing and so on, but there's still a really a large amount of uh, dense cover. We couldn't clear all that,
Mm.
even if we wanted to. It's just so much there, and accessing it is not easy. So there's no roads, there's no real entry points. To create roads, that also requires a lot of infrastructure, and it's a good thing. I mean, it's not a bad thing that we don't know what's in there. It's just
Yep.
I'm trying to get across the message that it's a huge area of land. It's not just like a forest. It's a massive part of one of the biggest continents, right? That's just Amazon forest. So there's bound to be areas that we haven't uh, been to, and animals tend to have like adaptations to microclimates. So it might be, insects that are closely related to
Yes.
other
Yep.
insects, but they're still new species. So it's not like we've never seen this kind of worm before, but it's a different, yeah, version, right? I'm trying to like simplify it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's how I understand it. Yeah. So that answers your
That's
first
good.
question, but I feel
Yeah,
like
that's good.
you had a few questions in there, Jaden. Yeah.
I did. Well, I had. Well, really, that was pretty much the first name one. Talking about worms. One time, I found a black and white worm. I thought that was pretty cool. That's pretty
Cool.
exciting. So I don't know
Where?
what species that was, but it was black and white. So it was neat. I was up in down in the New South Wales Queensland border rainforest, which is pretty neat. So I haven't looked up what species it is, but yeah, multi. This is zebra one. Go with that. This is zebra one. James zebra one. And then the second question was a heavy, maybe more of a heavy one, tied into ethics and people and wildlife, and maybe where it could be a fork, maybe in conversation for people is sentience. What defines sentience? It's a word that does get brought up in this kind of conversation. I feel so. What is it? Maybe why is it worth considering it? Why is it worth considering?
Yeah. So it is actually a word that, even though it's really crucial to my line of work, I try to sort of avoid getting into those debates just because people have all sorts of feelings about it. So I guess sentience is the idea that an animal is aware, well, first of all, feels pain and is aware of its existence. And it's something that's very hard to prove. So we know that we are sentient beings, but we can't really prove sentience in many animals. Like it's like even the studies that show.
You can theorize it.
Yeah, exactly. So you
You
can.
can theorize it, but it can't be like.
Yeah. So like they say, the neocortex is where certain aspects of sentience processes take place. So there's like you need to be able to feel pain. You need to be able to learn from that and avoid the pain. You need to react to your environment in a certain way. And these are all ways, like evidences of sentience. And there's like a hierarchy that they build, and they show that, these animals all display these behaviors, so they are likely to be sentient. We never say they are definitely sentient. We say they're likely to be sentient. So one of my close advisors told me this because she does quite a bit of research, or did quite a bit of research on sentience. The example they always give is of a patient in coma, right? So we don't know what people in coma feel or don't feel. Are they sentient or are they not sentient in that part of their life? No, as in that state. And as a precaution, doctors treat them like they are sentient. We don't know. Like we can do brainwave studies and stuff, but we don't know whether like cutting their leg is gonna they're gonna wake up or not. But we treat them like what the scientists call the precautionary
You
principle.
can
Yeah,
try it.
yeah, exactly. So I think animal welfare scientists also use that same concept. Just because we don't know for a fact that these animals are aware of exactly what's going on, um, we we use a precautionary principle and assume that because they might be, there is a high likelihood that they can. Let's at least try to give them a humane ending or treat them gently or whatever. So that's how I see sentience anyway. But you got me in
Okay.
a bit of a
Okay. So
point, yeah.
sentience is sentience is a bit of a challenging topic to kind of expand upon because one of the words you said is that is feelings. People have a lot of different feelings on this, and so when it comes to sentience, it sounds like it's very or somewhat feelings based.
Which becomes very subjective
Yeah.
then, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you're trying to have subjective conversation or trying to claim objectivity, but it's very seems to be feelings based and subjective to an extent. Interesting. And so look, we don't have to dive into sentience any more than that because there is we've spoken a lot of different stuff in this conversation. It's been really cool hearing your thoughts on some of this stuff, and we're pretty much on land here from in the conversation. So I'd like to finish off really with the overrated underrated question sequence. If you're ready
Sounds good.
for a couple of questions. First question is overrated, underrated, dolphin safe tuna labels.
Overrated.
Number 2, ghost fishing.
Underrated.
Underrated. Quickly, what is ghost fishing for those who might not know? I should have explained that, but what is ghost fishing?
I was gonna say that's your job to explain it. No, I'm just joking. So ghost fishing is a phenomenon. Yeah, it's a phenomenon that fishing gear that is used by fishing boats is often either lost or abandoned or discarded. And as a result, it continues, like it's in the water and it continues to catch more. I don't want to say fish, but it is mostly fish. It captures animals, so it's doing ghost fishing. It's like without anyone trying to catch the animals, they're being caught, yeah. In perpetuity,
That was
by the
better
way.
explained than what I could have done. In perpetuity.
Yeah.
But that was better than I could have explained anyway. Number 3, overrated, underrated, aquaponics as a future food system.
Underrated.
Underrated. Question about it kind of ties into the next one. Overrated, underrated. Introducing aquaculture into space colonization plans.
Maybe underrated.
Maybe underrated.
Yeah,
And the final one, overrated, underrated. Traveling while a person is young instead of later in life.
definitely underrated. Yeah.
Definitely underrated. And if there's a place that someone should go to experience wildlife, where do you think they should go?
Wow. So I'm trying to take my son to this like on a safari in either Tanzania or Kenya or South Africa because I never went to anything of that as a kid and I think it's just super cool. And I think for his age, he's not even like 5 yet, but for his age that might be suitable. But I was thinking like Amazon would be cool if like when he's older, a bit older and can can hike and stuff. It'd be really cool to take him to Brazil or
Mm.
Colombia or like in the heart of the Amazon and like see like what a real jungle is, you know? Like I went to Costa Rica and for a few rainforest experiences and it was just amazing, amazing. The amount of wildlife and sounds. Like the sounds of nature are incredible. That's
Mm.
true nature to me. Not true, but that's like the most extreme version of nature. It's so, so, so cool.
I've heard great things about Costa Rica, and it's a place that I would like to visit as well. But that's a place
100%.
where you'd suggest Costa Rica and everywhere else. But you suggested amazing. Well, Wasim, for those who want to get in contact with you or learn more about what you do, where should they go?
So I am pretty active on LinkedIn. I don't know if that's something that your listeners use, but yeah, I'm always available on LinkedIn. Just by my name, you'll find me. I'm fortunate to not have too many people with my name and the spelling. We also have a website, so you can go to ethicalseafoodresearch.com and go to our team page there and contact me, or use the contact form that will come through to me. I'm active on other social medias too. I can give my email address as well. It just felt maybe a bit clunky for a podcast, but
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put that all those details if there's any extra big stuff that you feel is too cocky to say, but that's going to go all down in the
yeah,
description of the video. So you send that through to me and people can find you there as well.
sounds good. Jaden, I do feel like I just need to do one thing justice. So, I heard about your podcast through colleague of mine I studied with, and she said to me, "Oh, you should reach out to Jaden's and working with wildlife, and share with them about the activity book that we're working on, that she's been working on for us." So, can I do a shameless plug? Go ahead.
Yes. Yes. Dude, absolutely. I'm so glad you called that out. That was one of the things that I wanted to speak to you about and about WhatsApp. But yes, tell us what's going on. This shamelessly plug away.
Well, I mean, it's a bit different to our normal work, which I guess is why I wanted to plug it. So, she's a really good author of children's books. She's an ecologist like me by training, but she's really into like the educational side of things. And I always felt like, we talked earlier about, kids don't know where their food is coming from. Kids don't know much about aquatic animals. They just have this like fantasy side, like, oh, Nemo and Dory and all this. But um, how do we
Mm.
educate them about fishing and fish farming and things like bycatch in a gentle way, just like a gentle introduction. So she's come up with this really cool activity book that like kind of there's a character that you follow around. He has adventures and you try to like untangle ghost fishing, for example. You try to untangle animals from nets and you solve little puzzles and stuff. And I think it's a creative and cool way to get younger people thinking about these issues. So that's my shameful plug. That's coming out in the next
Yeah,
month,
awesome.
actually. So the timing is great. Yeah.
Okay, so it's coming out soon. That's fantastic. Okay. Well, again, any links associated with that book, send them through
Yeah.
and I'll put them in the description. But is there another
Yeah.
shameless
I
plug for
just
you?
realized I never actually gave the name of the book. It's called Underwater Explorers and Rescuers.
Yes, yes, and we even talked about that in the pre chat, like the different names you're trying to figure out. But that name, I love it. It's a fantastic
Thank
name.
you very much.
So
Thank you.
again, for Underwater Explorers, that's what we finished on.
Yeah, so it might be Underwater Explorers and Rescuers, but it's still gonna go out to like a final, editorial push. Like, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, Wasim, thank you again, man, for coming on to today's show. This has been an awesome conversation. I've learned heaps, and I will be talking to you again very soon.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to talk about things that I really don't have much of a chance to even think about, and it's good to reflect back on your journey and so on. So thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for watching or listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to find more information on today's guest or more information on the podcast, you can find those details in the description below. Otherwise, I hope and look forward to seeing you in the next one.